Okay, so we'll get straight to it. Our topic for this fireside chat is garage to growth, founders through journey. So what we are doing here is to actually hear your story. We want to hear your journey so far, and definitely we've seen on the internet how many of the big companies that we celebrate today began from their garage. So let's see how our own began from their garage. And how many $1 million did they say they did last year? $2 million is what's hearing, right? Trying to imagine. We need to hear the story. How do you move, right? Let us be, please, I want you to be as raw as possible. Let's know what the real garage story is. How did you navigate? How did you start? How did you transit and grow? Just let's start there.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Fola Oyedeji is my name. The GMD EVC Nigeria Limited. How did myself start away from EVC? Well, I would say it all started, all honesty, since you said I should be raw. It all started from hunger.
Thank you.
It's all started from hunger. And it is not just hunger for the belly. It is hunger for relevance, hunger for impact, hunger for sustainability, hunger for coming into a room and leaving that room without people forgetting who I am.
We cannot forget this one.
So because of that, I started out very early. And by very early, I mean I'm a last born in a family of 7 on my maternal side. And that means that persons that are way ahead of me, as brothers, as sisters, a typical African Nigerian home, right? When there is nothing at home, you just want to leave home, to come back to feed home. And with that philosophy and ideology, I've been able to quickly embrace entrepreneurship from a very, very young age. I remember that while I was in JSS 1, I usually sell stuffs to members of my class, from granules. And by weekend, I also remember vividly that I would assist my then elder brother, his wife, I would assist her at the market. And by market, I mean literal market. Hawking batteries, food supplies, and basic staples that one would need at home. So that is basically how I started, from basically nothing. And yes, it did not start from abundance, but there was also the abundance of mindset. There was that abundance of reality. There was that abundance of knowing what I want out of life. And once you know where you are going, how to get there is really not going to be difficult.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So, in case you are hungry, right? You can learn from him. You can tap. Don't come here. Just listen. Listen. You will learn. In case you are hungry, and he just used style to corner hunger, not hunger for food, hunger for relevance. But we know that at the forefront of it is hunger for food.
Hunger for belly started it. Yeah.
So yes, and I believe strongly that a lot of people seated here, we know that even though you are not exactly as hungry as, right, there's also the need for that, right? And then the hunger for relevance is also critical. Maybe I don't know if we are builders. Next builders what we're doing, right? But now for somebody who is saying, I don't know if I'm hungry enough. Yeah? I don't know if, because I've been, at least be the person I've been saying, I've been hungry too now, but I've not done something that is leading me to $2 million. What's that, how did this hunger push you? The journey that gave birth to EVC. How did the hunger that you have, how did it push you?
Okay, I think since you've been mentioning this $2 million, let me just clarify.
No, definitely. This is just part of.
So, for every hustle, it actually starts out at survival. For every hustle. The persons that have built companies that the valuation is now into millions of dollars, billions of dollars, millions upon millions. At the very start, most hustles start out as survival.
Yes.
But to actually scale to the point where you would have millions upon millions or billions upon billions, you must now start to think in the line of impact. You must now start to think in the line of scale, meaning that everything is ordinary until the extra effort is pushed in.
Okay.
And if you do not see that desire to start thinking in the realm of, say, multiple millions or multiple billions, it's only because you are not hungry enough. And scale or sustainability does not come at the point of comfort. It actually comes from the point of discomfort. I lead a brokerage firm because for EVC, beyond just selling to people, we also train other persons on how they can be financially empowered. And I say it every now and then. You really cannot start thinking in the scale of solving actual problems for people if you do not leave your comfort zone. Comfort zone could be the home of your parents. Comfort zone could be you finding comfort in the sponsorship of a sponsorer. Comfort zone could be that you are just comfortable with your friend taking the lead or with your friend shouldering the responsibilities for you. So except and until you see that comfort is not necessarily your ally in where you are going, you really cannot scale and you really cannot grow it big. So if you are not seeing that motivation enough, it only means that you are still getting your belly filled. And hunger needs to come for that extra push to happen. So if you are not trying anything new, if you are not pushed to get any unique results, you really need to look at where you currently are. You can actually be also comfortable in lack. So you don't need to be comfortable with lack, and neither do you also need to stick very, very true to your comfort zone. You must leave your comfort zone for great things to actually happen. So, and that particular part requires you having a date with yourself. I've seen a number of persons say they have a date with their boyfriend, they have a date with their girlfriend, and people really pay attention to having a date with themselves. So you need to know, answer the tough questions for yourself. Where do I want to be in 3 years' time? Where do I want to be in 5 years' time? What are those things that are going to move the needle for me? And how can I get there? Like I said the other time, if your why is big enough, your how is going to eventually become very easy.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that response. Can we just, if we are clapping, let's clap.
Thank you.
So, leaving your comfort zone is very, very important. There's a lot of things I would have said, but because of time, the concept of learned helplessness and all of that. So we need to learn to, like he said, have a date with yourself. Tell yourself the truth about your current situation, and that nobody's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. Okay, so you've literally described EVC's journey, right, as bold. So what did you consider to be that very first bold step that you took?
Okay, so EVC is a company that have been in existence since 2019. But just 2 months ago, we celebrated our 3 years of existence, meaning that we started counting from 2022, the year we incorporated. Between 2019 and 2022, the strong shift in what EVC would claim as a milestone is the fact that EVC was able to separate systems, people, and structure. So before 2022, it was more of a solo man business, right? Trying to be both the engineer, both the salesperson, both the foreman on site, both the accountant, and all of that. Everything lumped together. But by 2022, something very, very pivotal happened. I just bought my first car, and that was when I realized that even my clients, some of my clients, was not so happy with that trajectory. They believe that, oh, now that he has a car, we can no longer afford him. And some persons decided to stop doing business with the brand. Then it occurred to me that if I really want to grow at the scale at which I want to grow, I must then define or answer some pertinent questions. And yes, that is why Malob or tech community in Ilorin will always be a strong force or a strong go-to for me. Back then, I was sort of very depressed, and I looked at it. What is this business model lacking? And how can we move from lack to sufficiency? Then I thought it good to engage in tech courses and all of that. I knew for a certain I was never going to become either a programmer or a tech person or what have you. But I needed that change in environment to bring clarity into what I was doing. And that was what Malop offered. So after engagement with that tech community, I was able to then find pertinent answers to troubling questions on what is or who are those persons that I need to bring on board for the brand to be considered powerful. What are those structures and systems that needs to be in place for the brand to grow seamlessly? That the growth of the brand does not necessarily tie to my own personal growth, and my own personal growth does not actually invade the progress of the brand as well. So, the time where the bold decisions happened was trying to go through a different path without forgetting my fundamentals, right? I know I'm an engineer. I know I'm a developer. I know I was into building, right? But I went into the tech ecosystem to look from a different lens. What is working here, and how can I introduce it into what I do? So yes, the time for that bold initiative would be, again, stepping away from the comfort zone into an unfamiliar terrain to get desirable results.
Wow. Thank you so much. Can we just jam our hands? So just in case you're here, you need to step out from wherever it is that is making you comfortable. Try something new. That's what he's saying. Try something new, right? And Malhub also has trainings. His journey started with those trainings. And after this session, you can just check their booth stand there to check the couple of trainings that they have and make your choice. That can also be the point where your change begins. Okay, so now you mentioned something around at one point people left you, right, thinking that they were not going to afford you again. And I'm sure that you've also had issues where trust was an expensive commodity that you barely could not just lose. So how did you, and I'm sure your industry is the industry is a trust-intensive industry, one.
Trust-based
Nigeria
system.
Also has trust issues. We are here, all of us we have serious trust issues. Even for me to leave my phone here and go outside, I'm already thinking, I'm going to come back to meet my phone now. We have very serious trust issues. So how did you navigate all of that? Because some people, the challenge might not be, they don't want to take the step. The thing is, do they even trust themselves and people around, right, to be able to join them in that journey as they are moving forward?
Thank you. For every business, I think the strongest currency is trust. Once people get to know you, they like you, or they get to trust you, they can transact any amount of money with you. They can engage you for any kind of service. But trust as its way, or as it is also a very, very difficult thing to come by. So which is why a lot of persons leave skepticisms in the air when they are trying to deal with people or they are trying to transact with persons. And for everybody, trust me, one good returns always deserve another. When people eventually get to do one business with you and they've seen you to under-promise, to over-deliver, they will always come back. If you say I've undertaken a number of projects, from Riyadh Tech to Riyadh Golf, Providence, and all of that. But one thing is unchanging for all of the projects, is that there is no project we've promised to do anything that we fail to do that particular thing. And I'm going to share a practical experience and story to this. There was a time we had purchased or acquired a large expanse of land as a company, and people were already trusting us to buy into that project. We began development on that project only to figure that at the middle of that project was a waterlogged area. As at when we're doing our due diligence, working around the boundaries, establishing the surveys of that particular project, it did not show face. It did not occur, right? But while we were at the middle of delivering that particular project, we got to know. So for an average developer, do you understand? But that was not the case. We had to completely look for a new location, and that was where we allocated our subscribers. If not that I'm even saying it now, our subscribers did not know that the very first one that we intended to walk around was filled with water. But because we know that we want them to buy and come again, right? Refer their friends and even their rich enemies to the brand. And integrity is that currency we need to spend to get there. So we went out of our ways to inconvenience ourselves, but for the long-term benefit of conveniencing ourselves. Do you understand? So it is not just what we say, it is what we do. And for every founder out there, every builder out there, every entrepreneur out there, let your word be your bond. When people give assurances or promises on your behalf, let those promises come to pass. And it is always best to over-deliver when you under-promise than you over-promising to under-deliver. And that's the only way you can build and sustain trust.
Thank you very much for that. So, you're clapping. Yes, clap, please. Thank you. So, my final question before we exit. So, I know we've been talking about the successful side, and I like as you tilted towards something that actually almost failed, right? So, let's talk about failures. To be honest, most people here have tried. Some people have built, they've stopped, they are here again, saying, okay, let's try it again, right? Let's talk about your failures. What failures, you can share one or two examples very quickly, and then how did you navigate those seasons of real-time failures and setbacks?
That particular one that I cited not quite long was in a scale of about 150 to 200 million. And it's one big one I've come to hold very, very strong, very, very dear, because it could make or mar the company as at the time. So failures are part of the building bricks to greatness. And everybody must have it at the back of their mind that if you are building anything worthwhile, you are bound to encounter failures, right? And failures themselves is not the problem. It is what you make out of that seeming circumstances. So you must have the mindset to learn from what those failures are. Because every failure is coming with a lesson. And if you fail to pick that lesson, it's actually going to resurface itself in the future. And for most businesses, right, there's no practical space where you learn business. There could be schools, Harvard schools, Lagos business schools, and all of that. But it's still theoretical. The only place where you test the strength of a business is in the midst of that business. And that means that you are also most likely going to encounter your failure firsthand. So it then means that you must see failure as part of the process. I have a mentor that usually says that failure is the price you pay for a business school. It's the actual price you pay for a business school. Most entrepreneurs, most founders, because what brings us to the business world to begin with, if not hunger, is usually passion. You want to solve a problem. You want to have an answer to a particular situation. And that's what fuels that business idea to begin with. But it's not enough to sustain the business model. So, yes, failures come within the office, outside the office, on site, and all of that. Too numerous to mention. But for every failure comes with a pivotal lesson. And it is how well you embrace that process of learning that would eventually determine if the next time you come in contact with that thing, you are in profit or you are in more losses.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So for anybody here who is in the midst of a setback, right? It's not about the setback, it's how you embrace the setback and what you learn from that setback. So don't be discouraged. Don't be depressed. Stand up and continue. Okay, finally, for anybody here who is currently, in quotes, in their garage phase, and if there's one thing you can tell them that will help them grow systematically, exponentially, whatever way they want to grow, from their garage phase to what we term as growth phase, what would that thing be now?
Okay, let me sum it up this way. Greatness rejects every first-time applicant. Try again.
Oh, wait. We need to take that again. 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 Wow.
Greatness rejects every first-time applicant. Try again. So when you are putting in the effort, you are putting in the pressure, you are bound to fail on first trial. But most persons will tell you they've been able to raise millions in valuation, billions in valuations, and all of that. What most people do not tell you is that is not the first idea that scaled. That is not the first business that thrived. That is not the first idea that is coming to limelight. So it means that greatness has a way of dealing with first-time applicants. And you must have a tough skin to try again. So go harder. Like my Oga would say, it's another day to try again. You go hard or you go home.
Thank you very much. Can you give a round of applause for Engineer Fola? Thank you so much for the session. Thank you so much.